I spend a lot of time contemplating my existence. I think that I'm not the only one. A lot of people speculate as to how we came about and who created us and why we're here. What's our purpose? You know? And some people have come to the conclusion that the only logical reasoning for our existence is that the book. It's the frickin' book, man. It has all the answers. Just read the book and you'll understand. There's a lot of different books. You know? They all have a similar idea in that there's some dude. There's some fucking... My bad. There's some mystical being that created us all. And he set down a few rules for us so that we may ascend into the heavens after we die and live an eternity in basically the best place in the entire world. That's the gist. And then there's some that just say, hey man, live a cool life and the cool things will happen to you, like reincarnation and stuff. But in my recent thought, I've begun to think past the fact of our existence and think more about the chance that the unlikely chance that we exist at all. So while everyone's thinking about this complicated thing of how do we exist and what's going on, and I'm kind of thinking about like maybe we're not even supposed to exist. Maybe it was just some off chance. Because if you think about it, we've looked into the universe and we've seen billions of galaxies, and we've seen a whole bunch of different ways for planets and stars to coexist and for the gravity to yank them all together. We've seen all this stuff. And we kind of understand, like, what the universe is. It's just kind of this thing that was set into motion some 14 billion years ago. For some reason. We don't know why, but it was set into motion, and there's just a whole bunch of ridiculously large masses just kind of floating around in the vacuum of space. Most of the universe is just empty space. And it took a 1 in something trillion chance for our star, our sun, this thing behind me, to be positioned in the perfect spot. Perfectly positioned with our planet. And our planet to have all of the elements that it needs, but placed in a perfect position to harvest life. No matter what, life will exist on Earth. Even if we nuke it, even if we set in global warming past the point of no return and everything dies, no matter what, life will return to Earth. Because Earth is destined for life. But I choose to think rather not why we exist, but I appreciate the fact that we exist at all. Because I understand it's just some off chance. Some fluke. My existence, my talking to this little rectangle is just some fluke. Everything that we see here, everything that we've created, It's just by a fluke, a glitch in the Matrix. And all of this started happening. What I think is really cool to think about, rather than just thinking about why I exist, I think it's cooler to think about why anything exists. What's the purpose of the universe? Because if you think about it, the universe is kind of like a living being. Like, I'm a living being, and if anyone's watching this, they're also living beings, but the universe itself is kind of like a living being. It was set into motion somehow, and it keeps on expanding, almost as if it's growing, like a living being, you know? Like, when I was a kid, when I was first born, two separate beings connected in such a way to make a third one. And it came out of nowhere, kind of like an explosion, kind of like a rapid expansion inside of a body. A sperm fertilized an egg, and then I started growing and growing and growing at a rapid pace. And to start, the beginning of my growth was kind of like an explosion, if you think about it. Because it took me 9 months to go from a microscopic single sperm into a full-grown baby. It only took me 9 months to do that. Imagine if I was a microscopic single sperm right now, and in 9 months I grew relative to that. I would be like the size of the entire Earth. So, just think of the universe like a little fetus, you know? The singularity was like a sperm, and maybe some unknown thing was the egg. Or maybe the singularity was the egg, and some unknown thing was the sperm that set the universe into existence. And now it's growing, and it's growing, and it just keeps on growing. And maybe it's just a child. Maybe the universe has just began to take its first steps. Or maybe it's an old man. Maybe the universe is about to die. We have no clue. But what we do know is that the universe isn't very different from you and I. Because the universe is growing, and the universe is learning, in a way. Because everything that is, that we can comprehend, is the universe. So, me learning is the universe learning. You learning is the universe learning. Because you and I are a part of the universe. We are the universe. Maybe the universe is just a little speck in some bigger scheme. An atom is mostly empty space. The universe is mostly empty space. I am mostly empty space. You are mostly empty space. It's weird to think about how much empty space there is. I can see this thing, this big wall. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. And it looks solid. But I know that it's made up of only a few different things. And those things are mainly just empty space. They've got like microscopic little tiny charges that hold them together. But when you put a crap ton of them in a row and align it perfectly, it turns into a wall. And all I am is just a compilation of tiny, tiny little atoms. But when they're aligned perfectly, it creates me. I guess all the universe is a compilation of little tiny, tiny planets. But when it aligns perfectly, it creates everything.